Welcome to my presentation. I am David Coker at Fort Hays State University in the Advanced Education Programs in Hays, Kansas, in the United States. Our talk tonight will be on covert autoethnography. I'm going to define it, give methods, fronting here. I'm going to talk about what it is, how it works. Then we will look at techniques to get around it. So thank you tonight, and I hope you learn a lot. Please email me with questions, concerns. I'll be happy to get back with you. In studying frameworks used in qualitative research in educational administration dissertations for another research project, an interesting phenomenon was exposed: covert autoethnography. Covert autoethnography is a disguise of autoethnography to avoid the shame and accusations of fakery wrought by autoethnography. Prior experiences show condemnation of the method of autoethnography, a mark which is sometimes considered to be anti-research or even a hoax. The method that I came about on this concept was I was researching educational administration dissertations for a technique of how they develop their qualitative methodologies and trying to help new researchers. So I reviewed 80 some studies on checklist, and then I reviewed with two different studies over 50 dissertations. Positionality statements, reflexivity, audits, bracketing, peer debriefing. I found a common thread. All the methods always worked all the time. There were never any problems. And there was a denial of self in all the reading. I found this so much so that there was an alignment between the theory and the research question and a position that we pretended did not exist. I said, why don't we just skip from the first chapter to the fifth? I'm going to know what's going to be found. So my method was studying over 50 dissertations and another 15 just on this alone. Fronting is the act that one does not have a researcher, the self in the act and reporting of research. Now, there are many methodologies, such as grounded theory, where the researcher is not supposed to be present. But other researchers, such as interpretive phenomenology, narrative inquiry, the researcher is supposed to be present. They're supposed to admit their presence, that they are an interpretation tool. Yet I regularly would see the researcher was pretending they weren't there. They were giving a different front. The different front was that they were unbiased, neutral, and fair. And this was so common, everyone claims, and I mean everyone claims, reflexivity, bracketing are guaranteed methods of success. 3 rituals to denying of self. And so I do put out the self is always there, but we have to deny ourselves in non-autoethnography research. And so this is what I would find. Theory of purification. And in the theory of purification, they would don an invisibility cloak. And they would say in their positionality statements, yes, I'm this stereotype, I'm that stereotype, this is who I am, what I am. But none of that matters. I'm unbiased, I'm fair, I'm neutral. I kept everything in check. This is a valid study, and it's not about me, and I might as well not be here. And many statements were just beyond ridiculous. Then, to make sure we keep up these rituals, there had to be an act of symbolic verification. And I would see this time and time again. And part of these were audits by Halpern, we talked about, triangulation, saturation, peer debriefing. Everything worked all the time. Audits, no one ever said, you know what, there's a problem here, this is a concern, this doesn't work, we need to go back and check this. Triangulation, triangulating what? Often, the downside of triangulation is one does not know their bearings before they begin. In true triangulation, there'd have to be some known locations. But the thing is, triangulation is another method. I'm at A, and I'm going to find that my A is correct. Saturation. It seems whether there were 6 interviews or 60, Whether there was 5 hours of interviews or 100 hours of interview, everything always hits saturation. Then the last thing, period of briefing. Sometimes they were quite a lot. People would have questions of 30 questions. It always worked. We always found what the author said, who of course wasn't there. Then the last thing, theory of legitimization. The theory driven was whatever the theory was, we proved. It is why what we say is correct. Rarely was the theory ever challenged. Was it ever debunked? Was it ever connected to a conceptualization? So the theory was the argument, and it was a justification. And so the misuse of theory, and theory of course can be wide or narrow. It can also be research-based, or it can also be philosophical. And so different theories have different purposes, and the misuse of theory, such as wide theory to specific phenomena, or narrow theory in the reverse. Or as Bernard Glasser would say, much of what we call theory has no research basis. It is what someone thought. How do we combat this? And so this is a central justification here. The autoethnographer, the autoethnographs out there, they admit who they are and they seek a transformation. And so I hold it to a higher standard. The covert autoethnography denies themselves and indeed often just finds themselves of what they wanted in their reading and their research. And the autoethnograph challenges themselves and has a transformation. So how can we challenge this? Not just for the covert autoethnographer who's underground and has to reject it, but for all autoethnographers. So I hope I present a novel basis here. And if you think of Henry Kadamer, then you'd be well suited here. One last thing. We call them findings all the time in research. Maybe we should just call them ascribings. And I know that's pretty negative. Let's continue on to how are we going to combat this. E.Tel Dror is a famous researcher on combating bias in science. He realizes scientists are often biased. They do not know what they're doing. They're doing what they think before they begin. And we need to combat it. Within the research paradigms listed, all of them, we just have magical bracketing, magical reflexivity. Oh, I just journaled, so I lost all my biases. It doesn't work anywhere. Life would be simple if it did. So I'm saying you need to develop your biases. And this is just a partial list. One is the criticos bias. It seems everything critical is the most uncritical. Indeed, critical seems to be in many theories and research urgency, not let's challenge, question, and doubt. We need to have a dissonance bias. If we're not confused, led astray, if we're not searching for multiple perspectives, then we're at a loss. Disconfirmation bias. We need to challenge and doubt what we believe. We need to find the negative. And is it an anomaly, or is it important, or is it a trend? We love linearity and simplicity, and ultimately we're ideologues. And don't think the quantitativist does not suffer from this as well. If a quantitativist finds a famous phenomena that is highly published and researched from grit to growth mindset, they will always find it. No one ever seems to not find something they didn't look for, and they never seem to reverse and say, aha, this is not what I thought, or I'm partially wrong. A continuum bias. We need to look beyond the binary. Mosaic bias. We need to get rid of this single theory and have conceptual and paradigmatic thinking. We need to be widespread. We need to stop thinking there's a single path and that we follow just one linear philosophy. A multivocality bias. There are several voices in every study, even within the individual person. They have contradictions and problems. And then the last thing, and this really thanks to Rakow, a decontextualization bias. We need to uncouple phenomena and check them by themselves. The autoethnographer admits the self and seeks transformation. We must resist exaltation, ennoblement, and claims of self-enlightenment. The problem of the fourth voice to add to von Manen Most authors are self-righteous. They are the positivist, post-positivist. We need to stretch ourselves and develop our biases. Thank you. Good day.